Hey everybody, welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie Jessica for 1 minute book recs.
Yes, that's what we're doing. We love our 1 minute book recs. So this is where we go over all the books we read in the past week with 1 minute synopsises for each book. Synopses.
Hit that subscribe button so you can be entered to win these calorie books. Follow us on Instagram for an extra entry.
Yep. All right. So how was your reading week?
I read a lot.
Did you?
It was pretty good.
Good. How many?
11.
Good job.
That's a lot for me.
Good job.
You read 55.
No, I read 12. But
exactly. You always have to one-up me.
But the first 3 are a part of a series, and it's a series I've talked about before, and I'll tell you why I didn't when we get started. So I'm only going to talk about the series in general and not each book. So I'll be talking about 10.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I have 3 books I can't talk about, and I'll tell you why later.
Okay. So my first read, which I'm going to talk about real quick before we switch over, is Zoe Draven was doing a Kickstarter campaign for her Horde Kings of Dakar series. And if you got all 6 books, I think there's 6 or 7 books, it was like $400. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I do love the series, especially the first 3 books. So I had to decide, because of the level that I chose, which 2 books I wanted. So I read the first 3 books in the Horde Kings of Dakar series. So that's these guys, The Claim by the Horde King, Captive of the Horde King, Claimed by the Horde King, and Madness of the Horde King. So we're just going to talk about the first one or the whole series, the series as a whole, maybe, because it's just, I've talked about them. They've been out there. They're very popular. You know. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to hold up the first one because it is the first one. Okay. So Captive of the Horde King, or just the Horde King series. So this is an alien series, and the women who are the heroines are human, most of them, but they've been raised on this planet, on this alien planet. Like, we left Earth a long time ago, and they sought refuge on this planet. So all of your Horde Kings in this series are just that. They're like barbarian Horde Kings. There's like 7 of these guys, and they travel around their world of Dakar, and they live in encampments, and they are, think Game of Thrones Dothraki. They are Horde Kings. In the first one, it's a captor-captive situation, or he comes and gets her, and he takes her to his horde, and he makes her his bride. And the second one, it's somewhat similar. He whips her first before that, because she does something she's not supposed to do that angers their gods, according to them. And the third one, he is just crazy. He's really called the Mad King. But there's an underlying plot throughout all of the books, so they do need to be read in order. But I love this series so much, and I had to decide which 2 out of those 3 I was going to get as the special edition in her Kickstarter campaign, which ended yesterday. So now I know. The first 2.
Okay.
The first 2 are my favorite. So, okay. What is your first book of the week?
All right. So my first 2 books of the week were my reads for part of convincing my bestie to read. And so I'm not going to tell you what they are. So make sure you tune in on Thursday to see that video, but I will tell you what the topic is so you can go check out these books. So it is going to be paranormal. So if you're looking for paranormal recs, make sure you check out that video on Thursday. We get a lot of requests for paranormal, so
We do.
check it out.
We do.
All right, back to you, Jessica.
Back to me. All right, so the next book I have is a little disappointing, but we're going to talk about it a lot. So this is This Love Hurts by Nikita. I was really excited to read this one because, again, I've seen it in my dark romance reader group, and everybody talked about how amazing it was, but it wasn't. So this is about Addison and Cole. So Addison lives with her best friend. They're young. They like to party, do whatever. And her and her best friend go out one night to a club. The best friend wants to get laid, and she apparently doesn't. And so we spend the first 3 chapters of this book having mundane conversations with our best friend. I mean, and they're conversations I swear Mandy and I never had. So just mundane conversations. The relationship is just weird. Like, it's just weird. And then, so the book itself doesn't get started till I think you're 30% in before things really get going. But when they go to the club that night, the best friend has a one-night stand with a guy. He ends up dead. Eventually, the brother of this guy who ends up dead comes looking for the girl who killed his brother, or who the last person seen with his brother is. Mistakes Addison for the girl, and he kidnaps her and takes her. He's mafia-ish, and it goes from there. So then she becomes his captive. I don't understand why people loved this book. I was so bored. The dialogue wasn't realistic. There's stuff in here they say to each other as best friends that I'm like,
maybe we have a weird relationship. Maybe we're the unrealistic ones.
It was just very, I don't know, Wattpad feels is what it felt like.
What would they say to each other that just didn't feel realistic?
No, I would have to actually go look. I've got 30% to figure that out in the beginning.
It's okay. I was just curious if something popped into your head.
Well, you say this to me every once in a while. See, aren't you glad when I bully your ass?
I've never said that to you.
See? No, you haven't. Anyhow, I thought that was the first one that popped up. I was like, ooh, but it was just stupid stuff, And I don't care that all you're doing for the first 30% is going to clubs and ordering takeout. It's not entertaining. We would like you to actually get to the story. So I give this 2 stars. I felt like that was being very
letting your age show.
I didn't like going out to a club when I was that age, okay? But it was boring. It was boring.
You're an old
Get to it. I always have been, yeah. But still, get to it. I don't go into a book to read about the main character and her best friend. I go into the book to read about the relationship. So can we get it going? So if it worked for you, wonderful. It was a no-go for me.
All right. On that happy note.
Yep.
I read The Forbidden Man by Karina Hall.
Ooh.
Oh, there's the timer. Sorry. Okay, so this is about Thalia. Thalia I think she just turned 40 or she's in her early 40s. And her husband and her work together in the sports field. They work for the same team. She finds out he's been cheating on her and they get divorced. So she quits her job because she just can't bear to see him in the whole situation. So she ends up getting a new job as a sports therapist in Madrid. And this is a football team, which would be soccer for us, obviously. And Alejo is 23 and he is the star on the team and he needs her service. No, that sounds bad, but you know what I mean? Like, it starts off a normal relationship. Like, he has to see the sports therapist. And from there, they start to form kind of a bond, and there's definitely some attraction and some serious chemistry happening between the two of them. But you have to remember, she just lost everything. Like, she had to move to a new city. I mean, she had to get a new job because she couldn't be around her ex-husband, when that fallout came. So she's like, this is a line I can't cross because of my job, 1, and 2, because I can't go through this again. That's why he's the forbidden man.
Okay.
Dun, dun, dun.
Did you tell us?
4 stars.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. All right.
So the next book I read is the one I was telling you about, where it's a widower and his name is Jeff, which is my husband's name. And his wife who died was named Jessica. It's a little weird, a little bit, but we're going to go with it. So this book is Doppel Banger by Heather M. Orgeron. I listened to the audio of this one. I loved it. It was so much fun. So again, we've got Jeffrey, and he is a widower. He has a 14-year-old daughter, and then his youngest is like 4, I think. He's got a younger daughter, and he takes his daughters on a cruise, and that is where he runs into Gina, who's our heroine. Now, she can't have kids of her own. She had really bad endometriosis and had to have a hysterectomy, so she loves kids, but she can't have kids. Her best friend has just given birth, so she takes who she calls her nephews, which is the best friend's 3 boys. So she's got twin boys that are 14 and then another 4-year-old, same age as Jeff's kids, on a cruise while the mom and dad are healing from having a baby and getting used to having a newborn baby in the house. Actually, they have twins, so they're getting used to having twins in the house again. And so she takes them on this cruise. She is a sex therapist. And so one day Jeffrey comes up to her and hauling this boy with him, and she looks up and it's her nephew. She's bathing on the sun deck, and he's like, is this your kid? And she's like, no, it's my nephew. Because he said, why are you taking me to your sister? Because she looks really young. And so there's that. And he's like, well, I just caught your nephew making out with my daughter. And she was like, good job. You got your first kiss. Like, she's all excited for him. And the dad's like, no. But they have a very tumultuous relationship. It starts out just being like, just banging all over the cruise ship because they can, and they're attracted to each other. And then it molds into more. But the thing with Jeff is he really has a hard time letting go of the fact that he lost his wife and his wife is not here to help him. And so you have some of that angst from she'll never measure up to Jessica. She'll never measure up to Jessica. So, anyhow, it was a solid 4 stars. It was a great, fun read or fun listen, and I really enjoyed it. But it's
I'm going to guess that eventually she surpassed Jessica.
No, if you listen to the book, that's not necessarily how it ends. But this is number 2 in the series. So the series is called Cajun Girls, but yeah, they're standalones. I loved it. Nobody will surpass me in my marriage. I actually messaged Heather Ordrin, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is my thing, this is my marriage. And I said, but I will haunt his butt if he ever thought about dating somebody else before Scott. And Heather was like, yeah, me too. And I was like, okay, good. So it was pretty cute. All right, next book.
Okay, my next book was my first Jewel E. Ann book. I've never read anything by her before. Have you?
I haven't, but she's on my TBR. So yes. I'm curious to see. Tell me all about it.
Okay, I read Look the Part. So this is about Flint. Flint's wife died when their son was very young, like a toddler. He's now a teenager. He is autistic, and Flint is just kind of working his way through life, raising his son, and he has a lot of guilt for things that have happened in his past, which rightfully so he should. And Ellen comes into the picture. She is going to rent the office space above Flint's, where he is a lawyer. So he owns the building, and so he leases it to her, and then finds out that she is a music therapist. And so he gets a little bit more than he bargained for, let's put it that way. And he is not happy about it because it's loud, and he's trying to think because he's a lawyer. And so they have a lot of banter between each other, but she is kind of worming her way. Oh, there's my timer. She's kind of worming her way into his heart a little bit and softening him up and everything. But he still is very closed off. So very unique start to a story.
Okay.
A little bit devastating.
A little bit devastating.
Yes.
I like devastated sometimes.
But I enjoyed the banter between the two of them.
Okay.
So at the beginning of the book, we feel kind of like he's not going to be a redeemable hero, but Jewel E. Ann manages to pull that together. So I was very impressed with that. So this was a solid 4-star for me. Okay. Really enjoyed it. I will be reading more of her books.
All right. Okay. So that last book, Doppel Banger, was a rom-com. Not something I normally get into because rom-coms don't really do it for me, but the kids made it funny, right? So since I had such a great time reading that, I decided to go back and read the first book in the series, and that is Boomerangers, and it was just as fun with the rom-com kind of thing. So not that I want to read rom-com, Mandy, but I did enjoy it. So let me just tell you about this one. So this, again, it's Boomerangers by Heather M. Ordron, and this is about the best friend that I met in the second book. This is her story. So this is about Spencer, who's our heroine, and Cooper. So Spencer and Cooper were sweethearts when they were in high school. They fell in love, and that was the first person that she was with and had all of her first with. And then the night before he took off for college, he broke up with her for whatever reason, probably because he was going to college. So now we fast forward a handful of years later, quite a bit, like 12, 13 years later. She's been married and now divorced. She has twin boys. I think the boys were 12 in this book. And then she has a little boy who is 2. This little boy made the book. He was so awesome. So she's a sex therapist with her best friend. They work in the same clinic, and the clinic gets shut down because the owner of the clinic couldn't keep it in his pants, and so they had to close it down. So her mom says, just move home, please, just move home, come home, you're doing it on your own, just come home. So she moves home with her mom, and when she gets there to unload the car, Cooper is in his parents' driveway across the street from her parents' house, and he sees her, and he and her have always been friendly after that, but there's still a thing there. The mothers are conspiring behind their back to get them together. But the thing is Cooper doesn't like kids. Cooper doesn't want kids. She has 3 boys. But I love it because the little 2-year-old calls him Pooper. And he's like, that's my man. Like he just made the book. I really loved it. It was a solid 4 stars as well. So these were fun to listen to. There was the comedy, but there was the emotion as well. So I really enjoyed these.
Awesome.
Awesome. And we're going to see her in Seattle for Rain City.
Okay.
All right. What's your next book?
All right. My next book, I decided to read some Whitney G this week. So I read 30 Day. Wow. I need to take some lessons on how to talk, apparently. 30 Day Boyfriend.
Okay.
So this is about Emily, who works for Nicholas, also known as Mr. Wolf. And he is very wealthy, but he's one of those really demanding bosses. And so she has decided, like, she's had enough. She's going to find a new job. So she goes on a bunch of secret job interviews, and unbeknownst to her, Mr. Wolf knows about all of them and makes sure that she does not get any new jobs. But he finds himself in a bind where he is trying to secure a deal, and he needs to be seen as a family man to make this deal happen. And so he asks her to be his like fake fiance for 30 days so he can get this deal done. And then once that's over, he will allow her to go find a new job. He will let her out of her contract. So that is this book. Really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It was a lot of fun. Okay. So we have like those enemies to lovers vibes, boss employee. Yeah.
All the good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next book I did quite a few rereads this week, and I'll tell you why. I wanted to reread this book because I hadn't read it since I was like in the hospital having my reconstructive surgery. And it's something that's been in the back of my mind. I'm like, I wonder if it's still as good as I thought it was when I was all drugged up. I pulled out the series. I wanted to jump into it and just see. So that book that I read is Reaper's Property by Joanna Wild. But this is about Marie and Horace. This is an MC romance. Marie is her husband has beat her up. She's gone home to live with her brother in this crappy little trailer that they live in. And her brother is doing some work for this MC. What he's doing, she doesn't know because, again, that's MC business. And she knows nothing about MCs. And so when the guys show up at this trailer, which she's unexpecting, they immediately refer to her as a sweet butt, which is what they call their club girls. And there's an attraction between her and Horace, but she doesn't really understand the club life. She doesn't understand what she's getting into. She still has bruises on her body and on her face from where her husband beat her up. But this kind of snowballs into a relationship for them. But he asks her to be his old lady. And again, not understanding what an old lady is and what that means, she says no, and he gets butthurt about it. So then when her brother messes up, it ends up they take her as payment to be his house mouse. So I mean, that's all I'm going to tell. That I loved it. I still did. I mean, if I had to re-rate it, I would say it's probably a solid 4.5. I did enjoy it again. It was as enjoyable as the first time. But this is one of the very first MC romances I read back in 2020. And then I listened to it when I was in the hospital after surgery. So, you know, it was still just as good. It wasn't just the drugs.
All right. Okay. My next book is called First Flight, Final Fall by C.W. Farnsworth.
Okay.
This features Sailor, who is a soccer player. She is very focused on soccer, and she goes on like I think it's a scholarship type thing or camp over to Europe for the summer to practice before returning back to college, where she plays full time as a soccer player. Wow. And she has a pretty rough relationship with her family. She's just soccer. That's it. That's all she cares about. And she does hookups, and that's about it. And she starts hooking up with Adler. Adler is a world famous soccer player, and she thinks that it's just a hookup, and he is kind of thinking maybe more is happening, and she's not really sure how she feels about that. So summer ends and she has to go home, and they have to work that out. So I rated this a 3. There was some angst when he's kind of thinking maybe this is moving in a different direction than what she is wanting it to be. My timer went off, by the way.
Did it? Okay. I didn't hear it, so
I can turn it up a little bit.
Okay.
And so the story, I liked it, but it just didn't, I mean, it didn't have the angst and the oomph that I
didn't
was
have
expecting that I
Yeah.
usually get from C.W. Farnsworth. So I rated it a 3. I didn't dislike it. It just wasn't, I don't know. It was just,
You're missing something?
yeah, I don't know. I really don't know how to explain it. I just didn't, the book, there was a lot happening in the book, but not a lot happened in the book. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Okay, so I continued on in the Reaper's MC world at this point, and I went to the second book, which is Reaper's Legacy. And this one is about Sophie and Ruger. So when Sophie was 17, I believe, she had a boyfriend at the time who was Zach, and she and Zach had sex for the first time. She gave him her virginity. It was very lackluster. And then the condom breaks, and she ends up pregnant. So she has her first child around that age of 17. It might even have started when she was 16. I can't remember, but underage. And Zach has just been a horrible father. He's just not there. He's absent. But Zach's brother, I think they're stepbrothers, is Ruger, who is in the MC. So we fast forwarded. The little boy is now 8, and Sophie is living in Seattle. And something happens where the little boy gets scared. She's a single mom. She has to hire out babysitters and the thing. And something happens to the babysitter that makes the little boy scared. So not only does he call mom, but he also calls his uncle, Ruger. And when Ruger shows up, there's this tension between the two of Sophie and Ruger, because there's an attraction there, but he is all about keeping his nephew safe and giving his nephew a good life. So he's like, you're moving back to Idaho with me. And she's like, excuse me, come again? And, he literally, or Spokane or something, it all takes place in Eastern Washington and Idaho. So he loads them up and forces them to move back and live in like the basement of his house that's been remodeled into an apartment. It's an apartment down there. It's remodeled.
Sure it is, Jessica. We know what type of books you like to read.
I know, club over that. I would still give this one a 4. The only thing that bothered me with this one that I did not notice in the first one, if it happened, is that Sophie's POV in the book is in first person. Then we would switch to Ruger's POV in the next chapter, and it would be in third person. And then we would go back to Sophie's in first person. It gave me a headache. And like I said, if it happened in the first one, I didn't recognize it. In the third book, that's not the case. So I don't know why this book was so different that way. So it just gave me a headache. But I still loved it. I love their story. It was just really hard because that was, maybe knowing that going into it, it wouldn't be so bad.
Okay. On that note,
Okay.
I went back to Whitney G and I read On a Tuesday.
Okay, well, tell us about On a Tuesday. Did you read it on a Tuesday?
I did not, but that would have been epic.
Yeah.
Anyway, so in this book, everything significant in their relationship happens on a Tuesday. So we have Charlotte, who's in college. We have Grayson, who is in college. And we have the very typical Grayson's not doing well, so he needs a tutor, and that ends up being Charlotte. And so that's how they end up meeting. That's a very small fraction, though, of what happens. But they fall for each other pretty quickly. And Grayson is going to be going into the NFL. And somehow things just kind of fall apart there. This is told in flashbacks. And so we have present day where the two of them have not spoken to each other in years. And he finds out she's going to be at this college event as a speaker. And so he decides to go so he can talk to her. And she's not really wanting to talk to him, but she agrees. So, 4 stars.
Okay.
I almost always really enjoy Whitney G's books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, what you got, Jessica?
So I had such a good week with Heather Orgeron that I stuck with Heather Orgeron. I went back to her. And so I chose Alcohol You Later. She's got the cutest titles for these books. So let me tell you about this. This is a rock star romance. This is actually number 2 in her Booze and Bad Decisions. And I think they're a country rock band. So I don't know that you can call it full on rock star, but this is about Raven and Nick. So Raven and Nick have been like best friends for years, but they're best friends with benefits. Like they bone all the time. And Raven is just absolutely in love with Nick. And for reasons, Nick is, I mean, he's still out there with groupies and stuff, but yet he goes home and does things with her. Or he'll call her and have her on a video call doing things with her. And one day he's getting ready for a show and he gets called in by his manager into a back room where there is a girl standing there with 2 toddlers on each hip. And he finds out that he is the father of these toddlers. They're almost 2 years old, that there was a woman that he had a one-night stand with 2 years prior, who found out that she had cancer the same time that she found out that she had the kids. And she kept them a secret from him because she wanted the first 2 years. She knows it was selfish. She left him a note. She knows it's selfish, but she knew it was going to kill her. And she wanted the time that she could have with her.
Sorry.
What the heck?
I was exiting the solo layout.
Oh, okay. Anyhow, so she knew that she
was done listening to you.
Apparently so.
Time was up.
She knew that she wanted to have the short time with her babies that she knew she was going to have, and not have to share custody and go back and forth. So he finds out he is the dad to these kids. He is in complete denial. He is like the world's worst father because he wants nothing to do with the situation. He has to keep them. So this was the sister that had them there. He has to keep them for like 6 weeks. And if he doesn't decide to keep them, then the grandparents will come in. But in the meantime, he calls Raven and says, I need you, come on tour with me. And she doesn't know why she's there, being asked to come on tour till she gets there. And he drops the bomb. Oh, I'm a dad and I need you to be my nanny. A nanny with benefits. So I give this a solid 4. I really liked it. I liked the turnaround that we have in our hero, but yeah, it was good.
It sounds good. It sounds like a book I want to read. Was it angsty because she's in love with him and he's still like messing around?
I think it could have been worse. Heather's angst isn't always a horrible angst, but it was good. I did enjoy it. Yeah. And you have it actually marked as want to read on Goodreads. But then again, we won't have thousands of books marked as want to read on Goodreads. So, Yes. I did enjoy listening to this one. This was an audio. Yeah.
Okay. Well, my next book was On a Wednesday by Whitney G. And I really should have done that better and actually read them on their respective days. I don't know what I was thinking. It looked like this was a series she was setting up, so I thought there would be like books for every day.
Like on a Friday?
I only see the 2.
Okay.
So I don't know.
All right.
Maybe they're coming later, but it looks like they were written a couple years ago. So maybe she just got tired of that one, or maybe she's going to come back to it. She's been re-releasing things, so who knows? We have Courtney and Kyle. They meet in college and they end up going their separate ways. We see Kyle a little bit in On a Tuesday. He's also going to be going into the NFL. We start the book off with Kyle showing up to her engagement party and really kind of inserting himself back into her life and kind of demanding to know where the heck she has been. So, and again, all of their significant events take place on a Wednesday.
Okay.
So, solid 4 stars. She has them marked not as novellas, but they're not like
Only.
really long. She says they're full length novels on there, but they're not. At least that's what Goodreads has it marked as. But they are not like.
Are they more
long.
than 200 pages?
Yes.
Okay.
They're more than 200 pages, but I don't think either one gets to 300.
Okay.
So they're shorter novels.
There you
They're
go.
not a novella.
Okay. Okay.
Oh,
All right.
we are
So-
nothing but if not descriptive here.
Exactly. And articulate too.
Yes. Some of us more than others.
Okay. So the next book that I went back to Joanna Wild and read the third book in the series because I like me a good MC. So this one is Devil's Game, and it is about M, who is the daughter to the president of the Reapers MC. And because she's the president's daughter, like all the guys are warned to stay away from her. She's 22. She's still a virgin. She would love to give it up to anybody, but nobody wants to touch her because she's the president's daughter. So she starts talking to a guy that was introduced to her. I can't remember if it was online or something, but by a friend who lives outside of the area that they live in. And she and him start to hit it off. She really likes him. She tells him about the other guys in the MC and you know, like wanting relationships with him. And he's like, no, you know, how about me? So when she goes to meet him a while later, they really hit it off then. She has a great night with him, but by the time the night ends, she is taken as his hostage because he is a part of a rival MC. He is a part of the, I can't really call it, Devil's Jacks. And they want revenge for something. Like his brother was taken or something. And then so she and another one of the women that belongs to the MC, another one of the old ladies, gets taken and held for ransom. But there are still feelings and attractions between the two of them. I mean, there's that whole like he lied to her about who he was. I think he gave her his real name and not his road name, that kind of a thing. But he's very attracted to her and he uses that to his benefit. So there's a lot of deception going on. But I still loved it. When I read it before, I gave it a solid 4. It's still a solid 4. I really liked it.
All right.
Okay. What you got next?
All right. My next book is The 5-Year Lie by Serena Bowen.
Okay.
Let me tell you about this book. So it says domestic thriller. So this is like one of my first experiences with a thriller in the romance side, and I was here for it. Really enjoyed this book. So we have Ariel, who has a 4-year-old son, and she's just kind of living her life because the man that she was madly in love with, who's also her son's dad, disappeared and died on her before she even got to tell him she was pregnant. And so that's been kind of devastating, obviously. And all of a sudden, she gets a text from him that says that there's a problem and to meet her at this specific tree. And she's like, she's perplexed by this because he's dead. Like, how does this happen? How does a dead man text her? And that kind of sends her into a little bit of a spiral of like, what the heck is going on? This book is told from her point of view, but then we do see other people's points of view when we flash back to the past. And that is in third person. It's done so well because we don't always know who that is. So it's like we're kind of going back into the past, like spying on what's happening a little bit. I loved it. So good. I devoured it. It's over 400 pages, but I just could not put this book down Absolutely loved it. Very different from what I'm used to reading by Serena Bowen, but oh, did she deliver. Solid 5 stars.
And even though it's classified as a domestic thriller, it is romance, right? There's romance in it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if there isn't romance in it, I wouldn't want to read it. But that's just me. But I like Serena Bowen. So
you should read it. Read it.
It's on my list. So
All right.
My next book was fantasy. It was a fantasy book. And I've seen it around and I wanted to try it. So I tried it. This is for all the girlies out there that read Game of Thrones and thought that the Night King was hot. You probably don't know. Okay, so yeah. So this is Bride of the Shadow King, and it is by Sylvia Mercedes. And this is about Farain and King Vor. So Farain is the oldest daughter to the king in her realm. And she has an older brother, but she has 2 younger sisters. And even though she's the oldest daughter, she is not the favorite daughter. She has been sent to live at like a convent type situation. And that is because when her father tried to get her to marry this other prince, she puked on him and he got mad and sent her away. Like a situation happened. So now the king of, he's kind of like a king of an underworld type situation. He's blue and icy. Not really icy, but he's blue. But it just kind of reminds me when they describe him of the Game of Thrones dude. But he needs a bride. There's reasons behind why he needs a human bride, and he needs this alliance. And so he goes to this kingdom to meet these 3 girls. And he's expected to marry Isabel, which is the youngest daughter and the king's favorite. On the ride there, he comes across a party that has been attacked by bad people. And that is where he meets Farain. And they have this instant connection. And she just adores him, but she knows that her dad's going to push the alliance between her sister and him. So she has to go back. So it's kind of angsty in that whole, there's a lot of pining. They both are very attracted to each other, but they really can't be together. And then something happens after an alliance is made where the sister is supposed to marry him. And that is where our magic comes into play because she has to deceive him and take the place of her sister. So this one ends on a cliffhanger. There's more than one book out there. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a solid 4. I will continue on. This one had a lot of the world building and stuff in it. So yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, my next book I can't talk about either because it's for another project that we're working on.
Okay. Is that your last one? Do you have another one?
I have another one.
Okay, good. All right. So then for my last book, I read an LV Lane book, which we just did an interview with LV Lane. So that'll be up on Wednesday the 5th. So definitely go watch that. But I read, now this is just, Mandy's going to love this, The Centaur in My Forest. So this is a part of her Coveted Prey series. That series is like 22 books long. A lot of them are standalones. And so you can kind of start anywhere in there. The books 2 and 3 are, you have to read together. But this is 6.5 in her Coveted Prey. So this is a novella. This is novella length. And this is about Chastity and Axton. So Chastity is a maiden. And this is fantasy, obviously, guys. There's a centaur in it. So she's a maiden. She's in the forest doing foresty things. And she hurts her ankle and she can't put pressure on it. She can't walk. And that is where she sees Axton, our centaur. And he is doing centaur things in the forest. And she has heard rumors that if a centaur helps you or provides aid to you, that you have to make a deal with them to give them something in return. You have to bargain with them. And so that is what she does. She needs help. She can't walk. And that is when the centaur says, well, you're going to be mine and do whatever I want for the next 30 days. And that's what happens. This is one of those books where I was like, am I into this? Is this, I guess I am. So I loved it. I gave it a solid 4. Again, I had a 4 kind of week, but it was just, I was like, I might need some more of this. Okay. New weirdness unlocked. All right. So what is your last book?
Okay. My last book is a new to me author. and I had the arc for the book, and I'm so glad I got it. So it's called Savage Lover by Laura Townsend.
Okay.
I hope I said that first name right. I always worry about that. Okay,
Okay.
so we have Victoria, who is with her friend at this resort that she's going to be working at as a Pilates instructor when she sees the guy that she's been hooking up with for the past couple of months and practically living together has basically ran off and left her at this island resort and is posting on Instagram with the newest girl he's hooking up with. She's not happy about that. And guess who owns the resort? His dad. And guess who walks in his suit to sit at the bar? Oh, yeah. So she decides that she's going to go over there and give Ben a piece of her mind about what a bad job he did raising his son, basically, which somehow ends up turning into flirting, which ends up into him giving her his key card to the suite at the top of the hotel. And she ends up going up there. And she gets there and realizes this maybe is not my best idea. And Ben shows up and she's like, okay, gonna go with this. And they end up really connecting chemistry wise. I'm rattling on past my timer, sorry. And they get into all sorts of fun with each other. We have some primal play, we have some light BDSM stuff happening. But the whole time, he has no clue that she was hooking up with his son. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it. It was very good. Solid 4 stars.
But she knows that's his dad. Oh yeah, she does, because she went to go tell him.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Loved it.
All right. Okay.
And that book, this video is out the same day the book is out, so go grab it.
Okay.
You will not be disappointed.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys. So that's a wrap for our week.
That is our week. So make sure you check back on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for new videos from us. And make sure you hit that notification button so you know when we drop extra videos. We love to do that. Like Jessica said, this week our extra video is going to be that LV Lane interview on Wednesday.
Yep, exactly. You want to tell?
And comment below, how was your reading week? What did you read this week? Anything good? Did you, are any of the books we talked about books you've read before? Do you have any thoughts on those? Tell us all the bookish things in the comments. We love interacting with you guys there.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.